So we knew we couldn't stay there very
Is that
long.
Linda Sireman?
But she said there's this couple
Like
that
a
I've been wanting to meet. She said they're vegetarians and they grow their own food and all this, and I'd really like to meet them. So she said, would you come with me? So Chip and I and another couple went with her to meet them, and they're still here to this day. They're and I just fell in love with them because they homeschooled their kids. They cooked on a wood cook stove, and I thought, this is the way I want to live. I want to get back to the land and get away from all the crazy things in the city, and this is the way I want to raise a family. So they took a liking to us too, and they said, well, if you like it so much, and they own like 150 acres of land, they said, why don't you just walk around the circle and pick a place and build a log cabin? So that was very tempting. But we said, we'd like that, but can we take a rain check because we don't want to leave our guru. So we got back on the bus and we went with the guru and these other people. And what they wanted to do, what he wanted to do was go to Mexico. And the situation was kind of reversed going to Mexico than it is now. They didn't want all these crazy Americans coming into their country who didn't have a lot of money and entering. So what we did was the guys cut their hair and went to the Salvation Army and bought white shirts. They must have looked like Mormon missionaries or something. And with the help of that and a little money, because some of the people that got on the bus had money. And so we were able to pay our way into Mexico, going to Mexico. And so we got on the bus going to Mexico, and we actually made it as far as Acapulco, Mexico. And that was, we were very, very foolish. We just slept on the beach, and there were these Mexican guys there, and it wasn't good. There were a lot of girls who were alone. It wasn't a good situation, so we had to get out of there. But meanwhile, our guru was getting crazier and crazier, and he would want to drive the bus on these twisty Mexican mountain roads very fast, and Chip was he was a nervous wreck with the guru driving like that. So finally, he and I and this other couple decided we were going to get off the bus. This was enough. So we said, go ahead, take the bus, do what you want with it. We'll catch up with you later. So we got off the bus, and we wound up taking a train to California, and we wound up camping out in California. And at that time, they were having huge landslides on the coast of California. So we were able to camp out right near the ocean in California for a while. And even to live, the supermarkets would throw out things that were day-old yogurt or whatever like that. We were able to live for a while just like that. But then we decided we were going to go up north further to San Francisco. And Chip knew some people in Sausalito, California, in this houseboat community, because he had been back and forth there several times. So we went there, and they had like a parking lot where there were a lot of abandoned campers and stuff like that. And it was a houseboat community. So we wound up living in the camper in this parking lot. And this couple that had a houseboat invited us to come in and take showers and sit there if we wanted to. But the couple were Christians, and their name was Jim and Joanna Grabham, and that's who Joanna is named after, Joanna. So anyway, they were so sweet to us, and we would just sit there in their living room, and we just thought, well, Christianity is okay for the masses, but we're so much smarter than the Christians. We have a higher form of religion. And we'd say things like that, and I can remember one day Joanna, she had a little loft in this little houseboat, and she stood up there, and she just witnessed to us about Jesus. And it really touched my heart, even though I thought she was foolish. I didn't agree with her. And she invited me to a couple of Bible studies, and I went with her. But at that time, I didn't get anything out of it. So eventually, we left there, and her husband, her parents lived in Salt Lake City, and her husband was wanted to go to Salt Lake City because her parents had a car for them there. So we wound up going to, starting to cross the country to Salt Lake City, and her husband witnessed to Chip, and Chip said he accepted Christ as his Savior. So we decided we were going to go somewhere where we could earn money so we could eventually buy land and live in the country. So we wound up going to Chicago. And we had some friends in Chicago too. So we wound up going to Chicago and living in this little basement apartment. But meanwhile, Chip kept talking to me and telling me, that he had accepted Christ as his Savior, and I needed to do that too. So finally, I thought, well, I always thought Jesus was cool. I just didn't believe in the Catholic Church. So I thought, okay, I'll pray and I'll accept Jesus as my Savior, and I'll follow Jesus instead of following these crazy gurus anymore. So that's what I did, and then we went to this church, and they talked about baptism, so I said, well, I want to get baptized, and I was very excited to get baptized. So I got baptized at this big church, and before that, I had been married for about a year, and I wasn't pregnant, and I really wanted to get pregnant. Right after I got saved, I got pregnant.
Only one she wanted.
So, I decided that because I didn't want to raise my child in the city, so we thought, well, maybe we could go back to Georgia and ask those people if we could still take them up on their offer. So, and this was before cell phones and everything, and we didn't even have a telephone. So Chip made the trip all the way back to Georgia. I had a job as a relief cook in a halfway house. So I stayed there, and he went back and he asked them if it was okay if we came back, and he told them, but we're Christians now. And they said, well, that's okay as long as you don't shove it down our throat. So we went back, and that's what we did. We walked around in a circle, and when we decided to cut down the trees, and we built a log cabin there. But one Sunday we decided, well, we better start finding a church, and we had seen these signs in town, in Blairsville, that said a going church for a coming Christ. So one day, we didn't even have a vehicle anymore. There was a whole community of hippies there. So we borrowed a vehicle from one of the girls and headed down the road, Pat Caldwell Road, and we saw this church, and we said, well, let's try that church. So we went to the church, and it was very small. It was just what's now a little chapel. We went there, and I remember one of the first guys that we met was the preacher, Jerry Helton's father, Clarence Helton, and he really welcomed us, and that whole family welcomed us and started inviting us. They were having home Bible studies, so we started going to church there, and a few months later, Grace was born, and she was named Grace because I felt she was my gift from God. And we went there for a while, but then we stopped going because the preacher that was there left, and they had this preacher that just kind of yelled, and Grace would cry and didn't like it. So, so we stopped going there for a while, and we eventually moved to New Hampshire, where Chip's parents lived, and we went to a church there, and it was there that I realized that I really didn't, I think I really believed in Jesus and I was saved, but I didn't understand what I was getting into when I accepted Christ. But at that church, I rededicated my life to Christ, and that's when I started even getting more serious about it. And I have to say that that was the best decision that I ever made, to follow Jesus. And I've been through a lot of things in my life, and unfortunately, my marriage ended in divorce. And when that happened, I thought my life was over. But because of my faith in Jesus and that He's always been with me. God has always provided for me, and I believe that Jesus, even though back in my hippie days and everything, when I was doing the drugs and living the lifestyle I was living, I think God still had His hand on me, because although I didn't know Jesus personally, I know that Jesus knew me. And so I just encourage you young people especially that the best thing that you can do is to give your life to Jesus and live for Him, because there's no safer place to be and no better place to be. And that's one decision I made that I will never, ever regret. So basically that's my testimony.